We're going to read the 4th verse, and then we're going to read the 50th verse. And if you have it, say, I see it, preacher.
I see it, preacher.
And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath, of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And when we go over to verse 50, we read, So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. Amen. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Tonight we're going to take a walk with the subject, facing giants.
Preach, sir. Amen.
In our walk with Christ, there's going to come a point in time where we all have to face a giant.
That's true.
No matter your position in the church, you can be a minister, you can be a deacon, you can be a lay member, you can be an usher. It does not exempt you from facing a giant.
That's true.
Giants can form in your personal life, and they can form in your business life. They can form in the shape of a supervisor who gets on your nerves at work, even though you're doing everything that you can possibly do to do your job.
Oh my.
Giants can form at school in the form of a teacher. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, you can ask for tutoring, and still the teacher offers you no help. However, I'm here to let you know on today that it's okay if a giant arises in your life. Because we serve a God who is bigger than giants.
Yes, he is.
God will allow us to have the ability to face our giants.
Yes, he will.
What we're going to do is take a look at a giant killer, and we're going to learn from him how to face our giants.
Help us, sir. Help us.
In our text, we have a giant named Goliath who has risen against the people of Israel. If anybody in here watches boxing, there used to be a boxer by the name of Iron Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was so fierce when he stepped into the ring that you could practically see people running away from him to avoid being knocked out. So we have our undisputed champion of the Philistines named Goliath. Goliath was a huge giant. People saw Goliath and they said, there's no way that we're going out to face this man. And he curses and he defies the people of God. And he says to him, send me out your best warrior. And we will have a one-on-one matchup.
Wow.
And whoever loses, their people will become slaves.
Wow.
But meanwhile, look at your neighbor and say,
Meanwhile.
There was a shepherd boy by the name of David.
Talk
who
about
was
it.
instructed by his father to take his brother some food. His father says, David, take your brother a Big Mac and some French fries and check on them and see how the battle is going. I want to pause there parenthetically and say, do not despise your small assignment.
Come on.
David's father gave him a simple assignment, and that was to take his brother some food.
Yeah.
But the simple assignment that David carried out gave him the ability to be put in place to move from shepherd to king.
That's good.
So I want to say to you, do not despise your small beginnings.
That's right.
Matthew 25 and 21 says, I say, well done unto you, thy good and faithful servant. You were good over few things, and now I will make you ruler over many. Now David gets down to the battle, and to his surprise, there's no one fighting. There's nothing worse than turning on your TV to watch a championship basketball games and no teams are scoring. No teams are putting up points. It seems like every shot that goes up, someone's missing. If you watch the last Super Bowl, it was disappointing to see the Denver Broncos perform the way they did against the Seattle Seahawks. I wanted to see a championship game and not a runaway. So now when David shows up on the scene, He wants to see a battle, but there's no fighting going on. However, the issue is not that there is no fighting going on. It's that everyone is talking about how big Goliath is.
Wow.
They say he's so big. He has a sword, he has a spear, and we definitely are not going out to fight him.
Wow.
The issue that I have with that is that they chose to focus on their problem rather than tell their problem about how big their God
Come
was.
on, sir.
So the issue is okay if you're in a battle, but tell your battle how big your God
That's
is.
right.
Yes, sir. So David decides to say, he says, you know what? If y'all aren't going to fight, I'm going to fight. And so what he does is he takes his slingshot and 5 smooth stones, and he heads out to the battlefield. And he begins to take his slingshot and sling it around. And he hits the giant in his forehead. And the giant falls to the ground. And so what used to be a problem for Israel, now David is standing on top
Come
of it.
on.
And so what he does is he takes the sword from what used to be a problem, and he takes the sword and cuts off the giant's head. Now, in our text, we can learn 3 important lessons from David and how to face our own giants.
Help us.
Number 1, what we can do is we can choose not to listen to negative people. If you look at verse 28 in the text, it says, and Eliab, his eldest brother, heard what he spake unto the man, and his anger was kindled against David. I want to take a moment and pause and look at the word few. He said the word few because he wanted to minimize what David's role was.
Wow.
If you ever seen sheep or had anything to do with sheep, you realize that sheep don't come in few.
That's right.
If you look at a shepherd, you've never seen a shepherd guarding 2 or 3 sheep.
Right.
There's usually multiple sheep on a hill. So what happens when people are intimidated by your gift?
Come on, make it
they tend
plain.
to try to make you fit inside their world.
My God.
Because they're not able to do what you're able to do. Now, David's brother was simply a hater. Because what he had to do is he had to watch his brother get anointed king.
Come on.
He was the ordinary young boy that was cast out to the side. When it was time for him to be anointed, he wasn't even called into the room until after all his brothers.
Wow.
All the other brothers had went through the process.
Yes.
David shows us how to handle negative comments from his brother. It's a simple and effective method that we should practice every day.
Yeah.
When we are faced with negative comments from people, we should do what David did in verse 30. When his brother said the negative comments to him, he simply just turned and ignored his brother.
Yeah.
Because you can't allow negative people to get in your mind.
That's right.
You have to remain focused on what God has called you to do.
That's good.
Secondly, what he does is David fights with the appropriate weapons. What we can't do as Christians today is get caught up in a battle where we're fighting a spiritual battle with carnal weapons.
Wow.
Saul tries to get David to fight with his armor. But David says, no, I can't use this because I can't walk with this. See, back in biblical days, there were 3 types of fighters. You had your cavalry, which were armed soldiers. You had your infantry, which was foot soldiers. Then you had your projectile and artillery soldiers. The difference between David and Goliath is that Goliath was a foot soldier. And David, if he would have fought the battle on Goliath's terms, he would have lost.
That's right.
But since he was a slinger and he used a projectile weapon, Goliath wasn't able to get close to him before he could use his weapon.
That's right.
So what slingers could do back then, they had the ability to take your slingshot and 100 times per second.
Yeah.
So when the rock was released, it was equivalent to a gun.
My goodness, my goodness.
See, this is the problem with Goliath.